Welcome back, everyone. This is Judy from Coffee, Cookies, and Books. And today what we're going to do is review the final books I read in 2024. I've got, I don't know, maybe 10 to 12 books to review. So if you're interested in sticking around and you'd like to hear about what I have to say about these books, then I will see you on the other side. Hi. Well, it's really great to see everybody at the beginning of 2025. This video is going up on the 6th of January, but it is officially January 1st today when I'm recording this. What I've got for you is I've got a review, a bunch of ebooks, and definitely several in print. I think what we're going to do is we are going to start with the only book that I do not have any details written down on. I started keeping a journal on everything that I'm reading just simply because I can't remember everything. As I remember all the small details, but I don't remember a ton of the details, and I'd like to really give you a little bit more of a thorough review on these. Now, I am going to say that these reviews might be a tiny bit spoilery. I want to give you enough of the book so that you get a really good feel for what's happening in it, but I will not give away any of the what I would consider to be the major details, because that's not really fair, is it? So let's begin with the only book that I need to refer to my review on Goodreads, and then I can shut the computer and we can go from there. Before I do that, I did want to mention there was one ebook that I don't know if I mentioned it or not. I think I did, but I thought I'd say it again. I had it on in my Kindle Unlimited, and I started it. I got probably about I don't remember now, somewhere maybe around 10 chapters in, and or maybe not that far. I don't know. Honestly, I don't remember how far in I got, but I got far enough into the book that I was like, you know what, I want to read this in print. And that was Her Soul to Take by Harley Laroux. It is a dark fantasy romance, I guess. It has a bit of fantasy-ish feeling stuff, because I think that there is witches and from what I could gather in it, bad guys that are paranormal, that sort of idea. So I soft DNF'd it. Well, it didn't really, I wouldn't call it a DNF, but that's what most people would call it. Put it off to the side, pulled it out of my Kindle Unlimited, put something else in there in my place, and I did buy the print books. The print book's gone into my TBR tin, and whenever it gets pulled, it gets pulled. So I just wanted to mention that one. Okay, so let's start with the one book that I did have this book. This is Long Live Evil by Rees Brennan, and I had this on my video where it was just sort of my final takes for 2024, and I will link that below. As this one, it was disappointing, but I felt it had one of the most unique plots that I've read, but I had some issues with it. And now I gave it 3 stars. So I did enjoy it. Three stars and up. Actually, even 2.5 stars and up, because that's halfway to the halfway point. So 2.5 stars and up is always, to me, on the positive side. So I did really enjoy it. But I did have some issues. So I thought what I'd do is just kind of read what I wrote in my review. So what disappointed me was that the premise of the book, which was this girl who basically falls into a story and she becomes the villain. I loved the premise of the book. Of course, I had, read what was on the back, so I thought, well, this sounds like it's going to be really great. So this is what I said in my review. The premise of this book led me to think it would be really a fantastic read. That wasn't the case. It was in some portions and other portions not so much. What was good was Ray. So Ray is the main character, okay? And she was lost and trying to survive by her own wits in this kingdom from a book that she knew that she fell into. Now, Ray is dying. She has cancer. And she is basically, a strange woman walks into her hotel room and makes her an offer. Do you want to live? And, as any young woman, I think she's 20, if I remember correctly, as any young woman would, she says, yes. So she ends up in this story, which I thought was really interesting. I loved the interaction between her and her sister and how much her sister meant to her and how much she felt like a failure, which I know is weird to say from somebody who has cancer, but that was how she felt. So I liked her character. The other character I liked was Key. That's his name, is Key. I really liked him a lot. Most of the other ones I didn't care for. There was another character that was in there. Her name was Princess Vasilisa, which I kept thinking in my head, Princess Vaseline. And it was just the way it was spelled, kind of led me in that direction. Most bizarre thing. But overall, I thought most of the people were very one-dimensional. There was Marius, Leah, who was a bit of an idiot, Emmer, who was weird. The other thing that really pulled me out of the story a lot was that everybody had more than one name. And I was like, okay, wait a minute, who are we talking about here? So as I'm going through the story, so an example that I put in the review was, so for an example, the Cobra, the Golden Cobra, Pop and Joy, and I forget what his real name was, I think Eric or something, all those names came up. And I'm thinking, oh, who are we talking about? Wait, who are we talking about? Wait, who are we talking about? And everybody had more than one name. And that, I think it's because she was a reader of the book that she ended up being in. And as a reader of the book, I think she referred to some of them different ways. I don't know. I mean, I honestly found that really confusing. And I think that was one of the parts where it just... yeah, that just threw me off. And then there were also other sections where it wouldn't be her point of view anymore. It'd be somebody else's, and they were off doing something. And I'm thinking, what are they doing? It just didn't flow great. The pacing was a little off. Now the ending, I thought the ending was great. I loved how it ended. So, I mean, if I'm being perfectly honest, I probably would continue the story. I mean, it was 3. It wasn't bad. It just wasn't great. So I would say that, it wasn't an awful read, but almost one of those ones where you kind of almost have to go back and read it again to be able to follow everything, because it split here and there. There were a lot of splits that I just found really, really, really confusing. And I would get to something and I'd go, wait, where are we here? And I'd lose where I was. And then there were other scenes that were really, really fantastic. So it just felt disjointed. That's the description I'm looking for. So I'm hoping the second book weaves together a little bit better. And perhaps because I know the people, maybe it'll be a little better. We shall see. But that's Long Live Evil. Okay, so that was the only book that I needed to that for. Okay, now the next one that I'm going to review, so I'm going to review them in the order that I read them, because that's how I have them written in my journal, and I think that will give me the best flow here. So we're going to be jumping from ebooks to print books. So that one, obviously, Long Live Evil was in print. Really did like it, just didn't love it. Okay, so then the next one, it was Afterworld. It's Hell's Angel series by Olivia Boothe, and I believe in the first one she also had a co-writer. I'll put the cover up so that you can see it. I don't know on whichever side I decide to put it up on. Probably this side, more than likely. I don't know, I change my mind all the time. My prerogative, my channel, my prerogative, right? All right. Anyway, okay, so a little bit about the world in this book. Now, this is listed as a dark romance. I kind of see it a little bit more like a dark romance. It has a bit of a fantastical element to it, but it also is very dystopian and has a bit like, you know, sort of a Resident Evil zombie apocalypse kind of idea behind it. So what you have is you have a infection has broken out, and people are getting it. They'll either, typically they get bitten by somebody who's already infected, and it infects them, and basically they die a horrible death. Or they take a bunch of people with them. I mean, it's really kind of sad. And the main character, Kate, she was a NYPD police officer. She has a canine companion dog, trained, obviously, that works with her. And when all this broke out, Kate was married with a child, and she lost both of them in this. And she more or less blames herself because she wouldn't leave New York. She wanted to stay, Kate wanted to stay, because I think she thought that this would go away. So almost like, I guess you could compare it to a pandemic like COVID, and hoping that it was going to go away, but it was obviously a lot more serious. And then it starts out with, there's a lot of action through the whole book. There's constant conflicts with the people that have changed, but also there's like these monsters, and like they call them hellhounds, and the Four Horsemen. So it quickly evolves to a point where you understand that this is not a normal outbreak. And I really loved how it kind of went sideways really fast. So Kate is in a situation where it becomes nighttime. This is how the book starts. And at night, these creatures come out more. And they have a young girl. And her dog, Hank, is the name of her shepherd. He is protective and wants to protect this girl. So they end up in the middle of this fight. And all of a sudden, an angel appears from nowhere. Now, I believe, if I remember correctly, I think she said some sort of prayer. It could have. She's not religious. She just is recalling some of the prayer that her, I think it was her grandmother taught her. And so this angel comes, and the Four Horsemen basically attempts to kill the angel, you know, cuts his wings off, blah, blah, blah. And she goes over to him and tries to comfort him. And he whispers something and gives her his sword. And essentially he gives her his, I can't, like, life's breath, so to speak. And he does, but throughout all of this, this guy is driving up, and his name is Jax, and he is, he's there for the angel. And then he quickly realizes that the angel is gone, but that Kate's the one he needs. And the reason he needs her becomes very clear later in the book. But overall, Jax is very gray area type character. And what makes his character so interesting is he's fighting a demon inside him. So it is, the whole book kind of evolves. Their relationship develops through this. And at the end, they have to go to a cathedral in New York. And when they get there, they realize that because she's been blessed by the angel, but she's human, her blood can be used to help victims who have been bitten by this. And it's like it just all kind of evolves through this, and how it ends, it's like a final fight, and it's really amazing. But obviously the story doesn't end. This is a 3-book series. I read all 3, so this was the first one. I will get to the other ones, but I didn't really. Did I read them in a row? I think I read them kind of in between the print books and everything. But so that was book 1. I gave it 4 stars. I really, really loved it. I don't know that Olivia Boothe is a hugely renowned author, but I mean, if you like that kind of story, has very religious elements in it, which might put some people off. Not much of anything really puts me off, but I would say that there would be quite a lot of trigger warnings for this book. I believe Olivia has them on her website and everything like that. So anyway, yeah, so that was that book. Then the next book that I read was Glow of the Everflame. I don't know that I need to say too much. This was 5 stars for me. The first book was not. Can't remember what I gave it for. Maybe 3.75. It was not quite 4 stars for me. I found the first book kind of had a bit of a disjointed feel to me. What it was the plot just didn't seem to have constant build in it, I guess, is the way I was like. So there were boring parts of it, and then there'd be interesting parts, and then boring parts in there. But the whole story on a whole was really good. And so I continued on to Glow of the Everflame, and oh my gosh, it got so much better in the second book. Now, I felt that the pacing was perfect. She didn't scrimp on any of the details, but at the same time, you didn't feel like the details were being thrown at you, just like an info dump. It just all flowed naturally. Her relationship with Luther built more through it. Everybody has referred to it as a very slow burn. I mean, yeah, it's about as slow as it gets. I mean, definitely. Her relationship with her brother and her father. Her mother is still missing at this point, which she was missing from the first book. So her brother and her father, her relationship with them, it takes a bit of a turn, which was, so there are like really sad parts in here too. And then there are others that are part of the Descendant that she becomes really close to. And I think she becomes very close to them unexpectedly. Now, I don't know, did I put down here? I didn't put down the name of the animal, which it's not a dragon. It's like a dragon with a eagle's head, I think. And but it flies. And these animals become tied to whoever the crowned ruler is, which ends up being her. I hate to give that away, but even though she doesn't want it, doesn't expect it, but this is her journey on that. And the whole thing, it's a rough journey. It's not easy. She questions herself throughout the whole thing. A lot of people don't trust her because she's human. And she doesn't trust Luther because he's descendant. And meanwhile, he's probably the most trustworthy of the whole bunch of them. I think her distrust of him comes from the fact that she thinks he knows where her mother is. There's the whole thing. And then it just kind of gets to the end. And at the end, oh my God, the ending was so good. It was just like so. I can't wait to read the next one. It's on my 25 must-reads for 2025. And oh my gosh, I can't wait to read the damn book. Like, the fact that I have to sit and I have to wait before I read the book is annoying at best, but it is what it is. And yeah, I love this. I'm just looking to see if I put down any notes in here. Nothing specific. It was like this book was filled with hard moments, funny moments, absolutely heart-wrenching things happen in the book. It just is her really rough journey to the end, and then at the end it's like, who the hell knows what happened at the end. It's pretty rough. And her mother makes an appearance at the end of the book, which she basically does in the first book too. It's like her mom gets mentioned right at the end. And then in this book, her mom gets mentioned right at the end again. Which, that would drive me crazy. But anyway, so that's this book. I cannot recommend this enough. Now, I'm not a huge fantasy reader, being honest. So I'm just kind of getting into the whole fantasy, romantasy. This I would call more fantasy than romance. The romance is there, but the romance is not the key element to me. Not the key element. The general growth of their relationship is important to the story, but it's not the key element to the story. There's so much more, so much more. So, highly recommend. Okay. All right. Then, next one I read was Unsteady by Peyton and Corrine. Now, this is a book about a figure skater and a hockey player. And hockey players Rees, I think that's how, but it's spelled R-H-Y-S, and Sadie. And he has experienced a concussion, I think it was. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was concussion. Everybody calls it an accident, but basically he was checked by an opposing player during a game, and it was ruled okay, but there's some question as to whether or not it was. Their team doesn't think it is, that it was a bad check, and he's basically been away from them for about 3 months, and he's dealing with PTSD and panic attacks, anxiety, all that sort of thing. And Sadie is a very hard character. Her life hasn't been easy. She's had a bit of a rough time. So this all comes into play when they meet, okay? And how they meet is he has an anxiety attack and she's there. And I think she knows how to deal with it because, if I remember correctly, because of one of her brothers deals with those sorts of things, and a lot has to do with her father. So the whole book basically is them kind of dancing around each other, but he is quickly very committed to her. Like, at first, I think he worries that he is using her and then realizes that's not what it is. But he's determined he's going to help her no matter what, even though she makes it like she doesn't want his help, doesn't need his help. And that's because she's kind of used to not needing it, never wanting to depend on somebody else. So this book, I read it, I gave it 3.5. I enjoyed it. It was not an over-the-top read. It probably the reason that I went with 3.5 is mostly because I'm not really not usually one for those college type and sports romances, you know. But I did enjoy it, and I read it because I did get the arc for the next one, which we will be discussing. So I did really like, and I actually like the second one better than this one. I did like this one. Second one, I loved it. So there's that. Okay. All right. Then we have, okay, so now we have, the next one is Descension, Night of the Seraphim. So this is the second book in the series that Olivia Boothe wrote, which is the Hell's Angels series, I think it's called. And in this one, so we've got, again, Kate and Jax is back, and then we have some angels. Mikhail and Gabriel are angels, but we are introduced in the second book to Samuel, who is essentially the devil. Okay, he has been cast down, and his point of view is told in the book, which we didn't have in the first book. So in this one, it's them having to travel. They have to travel to Spain, and Michael basically does what they call rifting and rifts them there, and it's rough. Kate is pregnant, so as you're going through this, she's dealing with the pregnancy part. And this has to do with the fact that Samuel wants Kate's child. He needs a vessel, so a human, in order to leave Abaddon, which is hell. And he's determined to get that, however. But there's a lot of steps he's got to go through, and there are things he needs. And this story basically is, again, them fighting these demons, which are way worse than they were in the first book. And the fight scenes are brutal. I mean, she really writes a really good fight scene, but holy smokes, if you have trouble with blood and gore, do not read these books. Okay. I don't have trouble with blood and gore. If I had trouble with blood and gore, I wouldn't watch things like Resident Evil and that kind of thing. I love that stuff, so, you know. But I don't have any problem. I just truly admired how she wrote the scenes in the book because, you know, you're talking about angels and demons. Essentially, this is what is going on. And, but some of the angels have turned traitor, and they're now working for Samuel. And then a couple of the four horsemen, I think, died in the first book. And then you get into the second book, and you still got the other ones you have to deal with. Oh my gosh. The one four horseman, I made a note here. The one four horseman that was left with Beleth, and he's the death represents death. So he's unfortunately still kicking around. They managed to get rid of, is it Azeroth? Astaroth? Hold on one second. Let me check back here. Astaroth, who was the Horseman of War, and he was the, he was inside Jax. They managed to kill him. I'm not going to say how, but so he's gone, and there's another one that's gone, but there's still 2 left. So, of course, they're all after her. Hank is still kicking around, which is the German Shepherd. It's just how she wrote him into the book was amazing to me, because he's the only dog. Like, dogs didn't survive any more than humans did. So he's there, and it's like a constant fuzzy teddy bear, even though he's not a fuzzy teddy bear. But you know what I mean? It's like that comfort part of the story that is still there, which amazes me. And yeah, I cannot recommend enough. Now, on this second book, I gave it 4.5 stars. I can't remember why I dinged it half a star. I think maybe it was because some of the things became, and I had the same problem in the first one. Some things were a little too predictable, and there were almost too many fight scenes. And then in the first book, again, it's a romance between them, so there's sex in it. And I thought, even in the second book, I thought the 2 books had a little bit too much sex in them, because the book didn't need it. And their form of sex was like almost borderline BDSM and that kind of thing. It was pretty rough between the 2 of them. Not that I hated that, but you know, I could have done with like maybe 1 scene of it, which is interesting, and I'll say why when we get to the last book. But anyway, so that was kind of, that was the second book. Like I said, 4.5 stars. Now, all of the books came to me through ARCs, through Book Sirens. So, I read them as ebooks, and I really did love them. And I can't recommend them enough. And we will get to the very last one shortly, but it's towards the end of the things that I read. So then the next thing that I read was also an ARC, and it was Unloved by Peyton Corrine. So the follow-up to Unsteady, and I got this from NetGalley. I gave it 4 stars. I thoroughly enjoyed this, and I think maybe it's because in this particular case, there's Rosalie and there's Matt. Matt is a hockey player, and he's Rice's teammate. Rosalie is Sadie's friend, but she's not an athlete. Rosalie is a straight A student. She's an only child. She's a really, really super sweet person. But confidence is non-existent. So you're dealing with that. You're dealing with an abusive ex-boyfriend. Now, I'm not talking physically abusive. I'm talking verbally. He basically talks crappy to her all the time. Like, he's just an awful person, really awful person. Yeah, hater boyfriend, ex-boyfriend. And Matt becomes her, she tutors him, basically, because he has to get a certain grade point average in order to be able to maintain as his spot on the team and his scholarship, which he has. And now he is dyslexic, and he has dyscalculia, which I had to look that up because I was not aware of what that was, and that is a numbers thing. So of course you've got the dyslexia, the reading thing, but this is related to numbers. And they have him in classes that she starts to question why. She is just like, wow. And let me tell you, he has he has some serious mental health issues on top of that. A lot of it stemming from his past, to do with his mother who has passed away. His father's a major dick, used to be a hockey player. Basically, he's washed up and just horrible person. And so, you know, there's a ton of struggle in the book, and it is a hard story to read, honestly. I felt much more emotionally attached to these two people. Now, maybe it's because they did appear in the first book, and there is actually a kind of a tiny bit of overlap between the two books. So maybe it's because I'm taking them from there into this second book. So I loved it. Like I said, I gave it 4 stars. It was just that much better than the first book. But for me, you know, it is the type of romance that I would not typically read. So for it to be a 5-star, I mean, I don't actually think I give a lot of romances 5 stars unless they're really, really, really good. Yeah, so I have to really super enjoy them. And usually that's because it's a suspense romance, and that's what appeals to me. So anyway, okay, so that was that one. Then, ooh, so talking of suspense romances, we are on to Chasing Daylight by Brittney Sahin. So this is number 7 in the Stealth Ops series. So I only have 8, 9, and 10 left to read, and 8 is on deck for January. So the main characters are Anastasia Quinn. So Anna, she's an FBI agent, and AJ Hawkins, who is on Echo Team, and he is Ella's brother from the Falcon Falls series. And everybody refers to him as AJ. And I was really looking forward to this book because I quite like AJ. Now, they meet in 2 books previous, when Finn's father, who is running for president, needs protection, and she's one of the FBI agents that back up, you know, this sort of thing. And so they meet in this. Now, a thing I really liked about AJ has a lot of ties to Marcus, and Marcus is a character that you never meet because he dies he's dead, a dead character, in the first book for Stealth Ops series. And he was on the team. And so it goes from like the opening prologue and then jumps 4 years. And then all the stories start. So Marcus is a ghost character, I guess, is the best way to describe him. He is always with the guys, gets mentioned a lot, but AJ was his best friend. They were very close. And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, it's because of AJ that Marcus joined the Stealth Ops group to begin with. And he blames himself for convincing him to do that. And, you know, his death kind of, I guess, haunts the whole group in one way or another. But it's like, so at the very beginning, he has an accident, and the very beginning is actually kind of comical because they're playing paint gun, and they're basically trying to scare off his sister Ella's fiance, who's a wimp. You know? And so there's all these guys. I mean, it's actually pretty comical. And but he ends up, I can't remember how he fell, and he hits his head. So he has a concussion. Not super, super bad, but he has a concussion. And it's so funny because it's like I'm reading about concussions throughout all these stories. But it's an interesting situation because he thinks he's hearing Marcus throughout the book. And it's really just his conscience, I guess, talking to him. And then there's Anastasia, and she works for, I can't remember what division of the FBI. I didn't write it down. I should have. But they do, it's like terrorist plots and things like that. She works in that counterterrorism, that kind of thing. And she transfers to the Washington office. And there is some stuff going on behind the scenes that she is working with another agent because they think somebody's crooked and somebody's giving away information on their assets. Thank you. I was trying to think of the word. Anyway, and killing them, basically. And it ends up coming around that it seems like it's her, but, and she disappears, but AJ takes her away because AJ figures out what's going on. They're actually watching her because they get orders from the president. So it's really kind of a bit convoluted, and they end up together. And then the story goes on from there. And I really loved every bit of it. Yeah, it was just, all of her romances are really great. I do find that, let me see, did I say, yeah. So as with all of them, you know, they've been pussyfooting around that they were attracted to each other. But the actual sexual part of the attraction, which is the spice, doesn't start until much later in the book. And that's usually the case with almost all of her stories. Not all of them, but almost all of her stories. And I actually like that. I like that tension that grows between them. Sometimes there's a little bit of fooling around, but they don't actually do anything. Yeah, so this one's good. 4 stars I gave this. I think, what did I say? Yeah, I liked seeing Marcus. Oh, that was the other thing I said. So her ex-husband is in this, and he appears at the beginning of the story, and I'm sitting there and I'm thinking, oh, please don't tell me this is going to be like one of those triangles where the ex-husband's a royal pain in the ass and he won't leave her alone, blah, blah, blah. But it's the opposite of that, and I loved how she wrote that in, but did it with such a delicate way that in the end you end up liking the ex-husband. So yeah, 4 stars. Loved that book. Okay. Then yeah, so this is my other 5-star read, which surprised the friggin' heck out of me. I think I gave 4 stars to the first book. I really enjoyed the first book. What knocked down the first book? So this is House of Sky and Breath, Crescent City. So this is Crescent City 2. I read the first one a couple months back, I think. And I thought the first one was too long. It's 800 pages. This one was 800 pages as well. My problem was that I felt like it was info dumped. First 200 pages, round about that. There were actions that happened in the first one that were like, there were pieces of that were great. But then it was like, oh, do I want to keep reading this? Because, you know, you're 200, and I thought, oh, to hell with it. You know, I'm 200 pages in it, and I'll read the whole thing. Well, thank God I did. I would say the last 500 pages. Wow. I really enjoyed it. So I did give that 4 stars. This I gave 5 stars. From beginning to end, I was never bored. Not once was I bored. I loved the character development. Some people said they don't like Bryce, they don't like her. I loved all of them. I loved how they intertwined everybody together tighter. So there was a much tighter hold that everyone had over each other. Even if some was like frenemies, it was a very strange dynamic for the group, but such a dynamic that when you got to the end, oh, it was rough. Just like in the first book, the ending was rough, but it kind of softened the blow a little bit at the very, very end. This one, no soft. Like no soft, okay? There was nothing soft about the ending on this one. I liked the fact that Hunt and Bryce danced around each other before committing, and that was mostly because of Bryce. And they escalated slowly. So, I would put the spice at 2. I didn't really think that it was super spicy. To me, it's like the odd spice scene here and there, and it's like, and in a book this big, it was very minimal, in my opinion. But I loved how her friendships just grew so much, Bryce's, and Hunt right along with her. He kind of got dragged along with her. He was a reluctant ally through a lot of the book, but he would do anything for her. And there's their development and what happens in their relationship. I don't want to give that away because it is a very important part to the story, and how they become literally tied to each other. So super great story. I am looking forward to reading the 3rd book, but I'm almost afraid to read the 3rd book because you don't want to lose people. It's really hard. But yeah, so love this book. 5 stars. That and Glow of the Everflame. I mean, just between the two, I would have been happy with just reading those. Well, okay, maybe not, but yeah, they were really good. Okay, so if I had to go between the two here, because they're both romantic fantasies, I would still say Glow is better. So that would still be my number 1, but this is pretty darn close, okay? Yeah, pretty darn close. All right. Okay, so now we are on to, let me see. Yeah, that's it there. Okay, so serial killer games. So I'm going to put that one up here. That, again, was a Nick Galley arc. 4 stars. Now, I went into this expecting one thing and getting something completely different. It actually kind of felt almost like I was reading 2 different books. It was a very weird reading experience, okay? Author is Kate Posey. I've never read any of her books before, so I had no idea what to expect. So basically, you've got 2 characters. You've got Dolores, or as she's sometimes called, Dolly or Dodie. Those are kind of like nicknames. And then you have Jacob Ripper, who goes by Jake. And the 2 of them, and then Jake has this weird roommate, but we'll get into that. Anyway, the 2 of them meet at the office. So we're talking 2 really typical, boring office people. He's a temp, and she is just there, and who knows what she's doing. So I have that, but they both suspect each other of being serial killers. And so the beginning part, I would say the first 40% is constant struggle between the two of them on who believes what of who. And like, so Jake has his roommate, Grant. Well, I wouldn't say that. Jake lives at Grant's condo, and Grant is wealthy. Grant is a criminal lawyer, but he comes from a wealthy family and everything. But he's weird. And, like, really weird. And so this, I'm going to give away one of the scenes because I have to, because it made me laugh so much. So you think, and she thinks, Dolores, that Jake is taking her to his apartment to get rid of a body. That's what you think, okay? But it's not a body. Well, it is, but it's a rubber, like a fake sex doll, sex doll. And it's because Grant brings these things home and then wants Jake to get rid of them. And it is a funny part of the story, okay? And it actually ties into the end of the story. So that's how it starts, okay? And then it kind of gets really serious in the middle and sad in the middle because there's a lot of loss in this book. So I would say check your trigger warnings on it because it does discuss death and medical assisted death, things like that. Yeah, and this Jake has to deal with this, and Dolores has to deal with it, and then it kind of draws on that as she goes through sort of that last bit of it, but Jake grows a lot in it, and so does she. She is also a single mother. He thinks she has a cat named Cat, but it's actually her daughter named Cat, and her first name is Catriona. So that's a funny misunderstanding in the book. And then the way it ends is just freaking fantastic. It's like complete chaos at the end. And I was like, wow. I give it 4 stars. Okay. I thought some of the stuff that was in it was a bit predictable, but still at the same time, I was like, that is freaking funny. And then that is so sad. So it was just how she managed to build in both things kind of amazed me a little bit. I would highly recommend it. I can't remember when it's coming out. I think February, if I'm not mistaken. I didn't write it down. I should have written it down. Let me see. Did I write it down anywhere? No, I didn't write it down anywhere. Or maybe I did. Hold on one second. Did I write it on here? No, because I'm stupid. So I didn't put it anywhere. Yeah. Yeah, I'm a dummy. I didn't put that anywhere. So I didn't, yeah. Not really sure what the hell happened with that. But anyway. Okay. So now, what was the, okay, so the last thing that I'm going to do is I'm just going to quickly talk about that I did, I had 4 arcs. Was it 4? Yeah, so they were all books that I read. 2 were NetGalley arcs and 2 were Book Sirens arcs. 2 were romances, and one was like a suspense thriller, and the other one was like a an AI thriller. So I read all of these. Now, let me just pull them up on here because I did not do reviews here, but I do know that I did review them. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm just going to pull up book. Oops. Book Sirens. And I'm just going to go in here and look at my downloads and reviews completed. So, yeah, so Colton's Last Resort, and that was The Coltons of Arizona by Amber Lee Williams, and it was basically like a Harlequin type romance, but with a bit of a suspense element to it, and I did give that 4 stars as well. Okay, then the other romance that I read was, hold on, that was from NetGalley, and that one, hold on, I gotta sign in on this computer. There we go, so you're so, okay. So that was called Dangerous Lover by Lisa Marie Price, and I have read quite a few of her books. The favorite that I read, she had a series called Midnight Man, and I actually really enjoyed that series. I only gave this one, Dangerous Lover, 3 stars. I felt that it reminded me a bit of the first book, but it just didn't have the same dynamics between the 2 characters. I thought it was okay. It ended a touch abrupt for me. That's what I said here. It forced you to use your bit of imagination on where it went with the 2 of them from there. So that was that one. Then the other one that I read was called Children of the Fog, and I don't think I reviewed this one. Did I? View feedback. See your review. Oh yeah, I did. I gave it 3 stars. Now what happened, and I don't think it was the author's fault. He's self-published. I had a difficult time reading it because the format of the EPUB that I got, everything was all jammed together. So there was like no, it was really hard for me to tell where there was any dialogue and where the paragraphs were. It's about a brother and a sister and weird things going on in the original town where they used to live, and they basically come back together for this, and it is a thriller. So I gave it 3 stars. So, you know, wasn't bad, but wasn't the best thriller that I've ever read. But I think I probably might have enjoyed it more if it was more the style of thriller that I like, and it just really wasn't. And then the reading experience did not help. So there was that. And then the other one that I read is that on Book Sirens is called Remote Kill, and this one I gave 4 stars. So, and it looks like it's going to be a series called the Vanguard series, and this was actually more like 4.5. I said almost 5 stars. I really enjoyed this one, and I enjoyed it because it was techy. It dealt with AI, and the idea that the future that was portrayed in this book is not that far off from our future, maybe. And it was a little creepy that way. The thing that I found the lacking was a little bit of character development. So it was so heavily driven by the plot and the AI and what was going on behind the scenes with that, and the bad guy who created the whole situation. Excuse me, let me drink. I need to. A little parched, had some coffee. Okay. Sorry. So, yeah, it just really had a lot more of that part, and so I found a little bit of lacking of character development. Some characters really were really well developed, and a couple, including the main character, I found not as well. So that was why I dinged it a little bit, because otherwise I really enjoyed the story. Okay, so that was it for those. Now, my last arc that I read was actually from the author herself and from one of my favorite authors, and it was The Art of You by Brittney Sahin. And this is the third book in the Costa family series. And so this is Isabella Costa, Bella, who is the sister, and Hudson Ashford, who is the guy that is friends with the brothers. He's probably best friends with the oldest brother, Constantine, and he grew up with them, and he became a Navy SEAL, and he's basically, now he works with them, like this whole kind of ghost security that they do. So I really, really like the fact that Isabella and Hudson relationship has a lot of history behind it. And there is an age gap. So I think it's 10 years between the two main characters. But she's 32, he's 42. So we're not talking she's 22 and he's 32. So quite a bit older. And, you know, I think I've mentioned this before. Most of Brittney's characters are a little on the older side. So, you know, you don't feel that 10-year difference. You really don't. It bothers him sometimes because he mentions it sometimes. So it's like he's really fighting this attraction. She's totally not. I mean, like, she knows she's into him. Like, very much so. So, but he slowly realizes how he feels about her. And there are a few things in here. So I gave it 4.5. I dinged it because it was a bit too predictable in some parts. Like, there were a couple of scenes where I was like, oh, come on now. You couldn't tell me you knew that? Like, please. I mean, I knew what was going to happen. And I was like, no, because why did that happen like that? No. Anyway, so, yeah. Get a little emotional, a little angry, because, you know, I invest a lot of time, frankly, in her characters, in her books. I love her books so much. And, I was really waiting for this book because I liked Isabella and I liked Hudson and I wanted to see them together. Although I am super anxious to get Constantine's book as well. He's the oldest brother, and his romance is going to be interesting, I'm sure. But anyway, this one, so it was really, really great. Now, the other thing that tied into this book, which has been part of books 1, and a lot in book 1, a little bit in book 2, not a ton, but then again in the third book, is the death of their sister. She was murdered. And so what happens in the first book, and a lot of the history that you find out in the first book jumps to this book, quite a bit of it, and the plot of what's going on behind the scenes becomes very clear that it's related back to that. So I don't want to say too much because that would completely give it away, and I don't want to give away too much. But that is, again, we're dealing with, I think it's Brianna was the sister, and we're dealing with a lot of that in there. And, you know, I like how it kind of tied that all in, but it also kind of ties it up in a bow really nice at the end. At least we hope. I have no idea if it continues on into that, but yeah, It was pretty damn good. Okay, so then we have the last book in the Hell's Angels series, which is Reckoning, Rise of the Guardians. So this is the last book by Olivia Boothe. And this is where everything comes to head. So in this book, now I give this book 4.5 stars. Absolutely loved it. The little ding is just, again, because it gets a little bit repetitious with the whole let's fight the bad guys, you know, that kind of thing. But her fight scenes are so good that it's really hard to ding her any more than that. So I just went down half a star on it. And I really loved her, the way she wrote this, even though this one heavily leans on the religious aspect of it, but in such a way that somebody like myself who has, I am not religious and don't follow it or anything like that, but I know enough about it that this was really good, and how it all came to a head. It wasn't a great resolution, but it comes to the resolution. And the points of view in the books, there are a few different points of view. There's Samuel's point of view, who's the devil. There's Kate's point of view, of course, who's the main character. There's Jax's point of view, and Jax is a prisoner of Samuel's. So his point of view I found the most confusing, just simply because he was in a lot of dream sequences, and so it was kind of like it jolted you out of it a tiny bit. So that was probably one of the other reasons I dinged her a little bit on the stars. But it drives the story. There's Mikhail's point of view, which is the angel, and there's Clint's point of view. Clint is a young man who has basically followed Kate and Jax, and basically almost like become a brother to her. So there's his point of view. I'm trying to think who else's point of view was there in there. Is there anybody else's point of view? No, I think that's basically it. But because you're getting all these different point of view and how they all interrelate and knit together, damn, it was a good book. Can't recommend it enough. The whole series is really good. I can't imagine anybody would hate the series if they like dystopian, dark types. The spice in this was like, it was like minimal. It was very end of the book, basically. Yeah, it was minimal. Their spice level is a 2, but it's a 1 because there wasn't like hardly any, which is what I wanted in the first 2 books. Right? So she basically gave me that in the 3rd book. Now this 3rd book, I believe, is out. I think it was scheduled to come out. So it should be out. The first 2 were out already, but this one was an arc from Book Sirens, and I freaking loved all 3. Totally, thoroughly enjoyed it. So, yeah. Okay, so now what we're going to do is I'm just going to do a quick review of a novella. And technically, this was supposed to be on my January, but it was 86 pages, and I wanted to read this because the follow-up book, which is considerably longer, it's like a 500 and something page book, was selected on my Kindle Unlimited when we did my TBR picks. So I wanted to get this read. So I read it, and he packed a punch in 86 pages. Let me just say that. Now, this is an epic fantasy. It is the Bound and the Broken, okay? And I think the next book is Of Blood and Fire. So that's the one that I'm going to be reading in January. It is, right now I'm just like 50% through the sci-fi pick I had. So I will be picking that one up and next, because I really want to read this. So this kind of, what this book does is this gives a history of what is to happen in the first book. And technically you would think there would be a ton of world building, and there is, but it's all within action. So there's, I think, 4 chapters in here. I think it's 4 different chapters, 4 different points of view. There's dragon riders. There is like the order, which is what falls, the fall in the book. There is basically, if you're dragon blood, you are tied to your dragon. So if your dragon dies, then you lose like your connection. So it's really like dragons are dying left and right. And all the dragon eggs are destroyed. Wow. It was wow. I mean, I gave this 5 stars. It's a novella. Okay, I was like, how do I rate a novella? This is what I was thinking before I went into reading it. It's like, how do I rate an 86-page novella? Like, can you even rate an 80? Oh, yeah, you can completely and totally rate an 86-page novella. Now, let me tell you, if the first book is anything like this, I am going to completely love this. Completely love it. I just... Yeah, so I think right now so I wrote down, as of now, there are 4 novels and 3 novellas, not including this one. There are 3 other ones, which I will be definitely reading the novellas because from what I could tell, they split off from this and deal with certain characters in this who survived the war. From this book. So I will definitely be going on to that. So I will review this one again to refresh when we do the January wrap up. Yeah. Wow. Wow. That's completely unexpected. Anyways, so that's it for me. That's it. Finito mundo. Yeah, I'm done. I hope you enjoyed that. I'm sorry, I know it's going to be long. All my videos are long. It's because I'm like, well, it's just, I talk too much, you know. But I'm hoping that I can improve my reviews as I go. So I would really love to hear what you think. You know, I'm taking notes and trying to, yeah, I would love to know what you think. I'm taking notes and trying to track the characters and some of the important plot themes, but it's hard to not give away a few spoilers here and there, and I think that's just simply because the nature of wanting to talk about a book, you want to talk about all the things you really enjoyed, and a lot of times, a lot of things you really enjoyed are things that maybe you shouldn't tell people if they want to read the book. So anyways, I hope you want to read some of those. And definitely let me know if you liked any of those books or if I've stirred your interest in any of them. I really hope, you know, a few people would check out the series by Olivia Boothe because I really thought it was a fantastic series and highly recommend. But again, check your trigger warnings on that one. Yeah, so it would not be to everybody's taste, so I would definitely check your trigger warnings on that one. And I guess that's it. So I will be back, you know, in a week. I'm going to try to do these videos once a week. And, you know, I'm really looking forward to constantly bringing to you everything that I read. And based on my video about personal, I will also be bringing maybe 1 or 2 videos a month about how things are going from a personal point of view with my diet and the regimen there and my exercise regimen and everything like that. So with all that said, I guess we're done, and I'll see you in the next video.